What's up, Infected, and welcome to Kickstart Your Week. So if you're not sure what this show is, it is my weekly show where I cover no more than 10 Kickstarters that recently came out from the previous week. Now, with a little bit of time, only so many hours in the day, and so many Kickstarters, and especially for this week, that has come out that a lot of them are really good, I do not have the time to cover them all, so I cover the 10 that I thought looked really good. Now, this week's show, I have a special guest here, my wife, just like last week, but instead of doing the whole 20 and alternating back and forth, she was able to find 2 games, and she wanted to kind of be a part of the whole YouTube thing that I'm trying to pull here. So I'm going to let her cover her first 2 games, because I don't think either of them... Yeah, I don't have either of those games. So this week's a little special. We have 12 games, essentially. I don't know why I put up 7 fingers, but we have 12 this week.
You need to go, duh, duh, duh.
You're a dork. I'm going to let her go ahead and take the reins.
Okay, so starting out, I've only have 2 games selected due to I was working today, and I wasn't initially planning to do this. But
during dinner, she was like, you know what? So she took not even 15 minutes and kind of briefly looked over, and she just wanted to talk about 2 games that she thought looked neat.
So in that time, I did run across a game called the Silly Friends Drawing Game. It kind of goes back and reminds me of the games, or not the games, the books that you got at like the book fairs and schools that taught you how to draw. Type thing, and
would you say it looks kind of like a mangaka, that game that I reviewed a while back?
In a way, but it's not like comic booky. It's more of creating silly animated characters.
Yeah, I didn't even notice this one.
You know, it was. But you don't have to have like a storyline, I don't think. I didn't really get to read too much into it, but it does look like it's really fun.
That's cool.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I could be 100% wrong.
You're all over the place, lady.
I know. I'm sorry, I love you. So I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that I saw in there the way that you create your character is like you're rolling dice to figure out which body part you're going to be drawing on your character.
Yeah.
Okay, look. And the next and last one that I found that looked really intriguing to me was Vault Assault. It is a dice game, but it looks a little bit different because you've got 2 to 4 players, and you could play head to head, but you're also on teams of cops and robbers. And once one round's over, you switch.
Yeah, this was one that I looked at kind of in passing, but where I could only cover 10, it's one of the ones that had to get pushed out, because especially this week, I probably could have covered like 15 different games, but I had to cut it down to 10 to save time.
And also it looks like if you do like different combos with the dice, because they have little pictures on it, and you can match them up to make a bigger picture, and they had stuff that you yell out, like I saw one that if it was a full shape of a donut, then you have to shout out a donut type or a donut flavor.
Oh. It's going to be one of those force you to be silly because lol kind of games, isn't it?
I think so.
Oh, no.
And that's what makes it awesome.
And that's probably why I got bumped from the list. Alright, now on to the remaining 10. She had a phone call she had to go take. So she'll be back on the outro, I guess you can say. But first up on my list is, no surprise, Cthulhu Wars Onslaught 3. Now, I've never played Cthulhu Wars, but from everything I've seen, and I have a friend of mine that has it, but he refuses to play it until he fully paints it, which is never going to happen. You know who I'm talking about, Zach. Anyways, the game, from what I understand, is basically Chaos in the Old World, but with these giant models that are very satisfying to move around, and they're very similar games. And basically, you are controllers or cultists, I guess, of old ones trying to summon them in and destroy the world. So it's a competitive strategy game, and everything about this game is just large and over the top. And the Kickstarter comes with just a ridiculous amount of stuff, and I think it's like the $500 tier comes with the base game and like everything. I'd love to get my hands on a copy of Cthulhu Wars, but from everything I've heard, like I said, it's basically Chaos in the Old World, and I already have that game. And I love that game, but who knows? It looks really, really good, though. Next up is Master of the Galaxy. This is a Space 4X with like bag building and card drafting, with a couple other really unique systems and a really nice aesthetic. And there seems to be multiple ways to win, such as building certain buildings, like building all your political buildings, or an economic victory, or just exterminating everybody else. But I thought that was really interesting for a 4X to have a bag building mechanic. I guess it's where, depending on buildings that you build, you're going to put cubes into a bag, and then you'll pull cubes out, and that's like what you have created that turn. I don't remember. It just looks really neat. I thought that was a cool little system, and I'm curious in how that'll work with a 4X game. Next up is Starscraper's Cave-In. Now, this one you're running like a galactic mining corporation, and you're trying to recruit miners so you can use them to mine longer and deeper into like an asteroid to uncover larger and larger areas to allow you to get more and more resources. And I wasn't able to get a whole lot from the game, but the minis look really pretty, and the overall board and everything looks really intriguing. And it looked fantastic, and it's kind of like a push your luck kind of game, also while running a mining company. Definitely check that one out. Next up is Werewolf vs. Vampires. Now, this one, I'm a huge fan of Old World of Darkness. Not so much the new crap. I've played a couple in it, and I was feeling it. But my first tabletop role-playing game ever was Vampire the Masquerade, and it is probably by far my favorite. It's one of the few games that when DMing, I could just decide, let's play, and if everybody had characters already anyways, I could just start making stuff up because I've ran so many games of it. But this one, you're vampires versus werewolves, and it may not have anything to do with Vampire the Masquerade, it's just that's what immediately came to mind. But you're trying to, like, I guess, build the board game or the game board together, where like I control this area and then I create a path to this and so on and so forth, and then you're trying to destroy each other's like base or headquarters in this board that you both have created together, creating back doors and exploits and stuff. And I thought that was a pretty cool concept where something I put to get to you, you also use against me, and I thought that was pretty neat. Next up is Out of the Woods, because funnily enough, one of the games I recommended last week, I mentioned American McGee. I love American McGee's Alice. The first one was phenomenal, the second one was pretty good, and this is American McGee. He's making a card game, and this one, it's like a set collecting card matching style game, where the first person to lose all of their cards wins, which reminds me of Uno, and I hate Uno. But hopefully, it's American McGee, he makes good video games, and he puts the teeth back into old fairy tales, so they're very grim and very dark and usually pretty gross and very twisted, like a fever dream fairy tale essentially. And hopefully they make it better than something like Uno, and it's actually a fun game. And I know I'll probably get flack for that, but whatever. But on top of that, if certain pledge level that you can get a book, and it's a fairy tale book, but in American McGee style. So I think it's got 10 fairy tales in it, paired with the American McGee's art. So it's very dark and gross and twisted, and it looks phenomenal. And it's fucking American McGee. What else do you want me to say? Next up is Renegade. Now, Renegade is a deck-building cyberpunk game with a tactile board, which I love deck builders that add a spatial element to a deck builder, such as, the Attack on Titan deck builder, for example, does it. We actually have a board that you have to maneuver around, which, kind of a loose example, but you get the idea, where there's some kind of tactile, like, spatial awareness to your deck builder. And I really enjoy games that do that. And this one, apparently, all the missions that come out during a game, you're only going to have so many out of a big stack of missions. So no game is going to be the same. So it should, in theory, have a ton of replayability. Next up is Twin Stars. Now, Twin Stars is a story-driven solo adventure game from Button Shy Games. Now, I've reviewed several of their games, And all their games usually fit in a little a wallet pouch about this big. You can slide it in your pocket and you go. And this looks like it might be very similar to that, except maybe you'll have to get some dice, because it looks like it's a dice-driven game. But for the most part, button shy games usually turn out to be really, really fun. And this one looks like it's no exception. Number 9 is Argent the Consortium. Now, I don't know if you can see up here, which you can't because it's right off screen. I love Argent the Consortium. It's one of my favorite games, and it's a worker placement game where all of your different workers, in the beginning of the game, you're going to pick your workers. And all of the workers do different things. They have special abilities when you place them out on the board, so you kind of can tailor your strategy that way. But then on top of that, all of the rooms that come out, there's a ton of rooms, and you're only ever going to use so many of them depending on the number of players. So that changes the way you play. And then on top of that, there are hidden, curators, I think they're called, that you're trying to gain the favor of. And there's a ton of them, and you only use a few. So that changes how it is. And this game has next to infinite replayability with tons of hidden information, and you're trying to peek at objectives. And then people have to watch why you're collecting all of these one token, because maybe one of the people will award their vote to you if you have the most. And it's a insanely fun worker placement. It takes up a large amount of real estate when you play, but it is one of the best worker placements I've ever played. And lastly is Blind Wizard's Brawl. Now, Blind Wizard's Brawl calls themselves a micro deck builder, which is just insane to think about. Because when you think about a deck builder, you think about a ton of cards, and you're making your deck bigger and then thinning out crappy cards and trying to get a really efficient engine built, essentially. And Blind Wizard's Brawl isn't really that, but it's still deck building. And there's not very many cards. Your deck's going to consist of like 7 or 8 cards at the most of the time. And it has an app support where it randomly generates a wizard for you with a power and starting stats, and then you just fight. And there's a lot of bluffing involved, and I did a review for it. I definitely recommend checking that out. But it's a very fast and very fun little game. I highly recommend this to anybody who just likes really quick, really fun, insane little games. But anyways, that is my 10 games for the week and her 2 for the week of games that we recommend checking out on Kickstarter. They all look really good, and especially, like I said earlier this week, there were a lot more than 10 games. I actually struggled narrowing it down to 10. There were a few that were no-brainers, but overall, there's a lot of good ones out. Definitely look over Kickstarter. Well, if you're new here, make sure you give me a like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon up in the corner and down in the description if you'd like to help support the show. If you're afraid of commitment, I do have a tip jar down in the description as well. That is you can give a one-time donation. If any little bit helps the show, and I greatly appreciate it. If you don't want to donate, that's perfectly fine. Sit back and enjoy the show. I hope you did, and I'll see you guys next time in the Kwarenteen.
Quarantine.
You're weird.